First of all, we need to understand that God moves creatively, and we must have an expectation that God can creatively move in our favor. Okay, creatively is just who he is. It's how he rolls, right? If we look to Genesis chapter 1, it says, in the beginning, he what? Created the heaven and the earth. The very first thing that we read when we open up our Bibles is in the beginning, he what? Created. He made out of nothing. He didn't reform, reshape. He created. He took from what was not and made something that is. He took from the invisible and made the visible. He created. It's part of his nature. Not only was he in the beginning the creator, but in the in-between, he was also the creator. Go through Scripture. What did he do? He healed in creative ways. The scripture that we just read about the bread, if you just keep reading on, in Mark chapter 8, if you go to chapter 22, after they crossed the lake and went to the next city, there was a sick man there. He grabbed the sick man. He brought him outside the town. The guy couldn't see. That his sickness, he was blind. He couldn't see. And this is the verse where he takes the guy out of town. He spits in the clay, takes the clay, mixes it up with his finger, takes the spit clay, sticks it in his eyes, and heals his eyes. That's creative healing for you. Anybody can't see this morning? No? Because I got a way we can heal you. You don't need a doctor. We just need some mud and a good, you know what I mean? We get some water here. He healed in creative ways. He spit in the eyes to heal them. I know that sounds crazy, but he was just being creative. He rescued in creative ways. Look to the story of Moses. What did he do? They were about to get taken over by the armies of Pharaoh. And he gave Moses the strategy. Go stand before the Red Sea and lift up your staff, and the seas would part. He saved and rescued in creative ways. God made us creative, didn't he? Look at the person next to you. Don't they look kind of creative? I was going to say something else. I feel like the Lord just stopped me, right? God made us in creative ways. He wove us. Like, I don't know if you think about the word wove. It says that he knew us from before there was any days of us. He formed our unformed substance. He wove us together. He put everything about you together, like he made you in a creative way. God is creative in what he does. He's creative in his intricacies. So not only in the beginning was God the creator, in between God is the creator, and he creates on our behalf. We just saw that in the demonstration of the bread and the multiplied feeding of the people. It was a demonstration of his divine creativity. But what's the problem with us? What's wrong with us? The disciples immediately forgot, and they fell back upon their own lack of vision. They couldn't see. Lack of understanding, lack of hearing, and hardened hearts. How many of us believed God in one time or one season, but the situation and the circumstances beat us up so far that we stopped believing that God could do what he once was doing? And therefore we don't see it anymore, or we don't hear it anymore. Help me out there in the back. Do you hear what I'm saying? That life beats you up so much that you now have something against God. You now have a hard heart against God, and we no longer believe that God is creative enough, that he's no longer the creator, that he can't create a problem for our solution. How many of you guys understand that he's still a way maker? He still makes a way through the forest. He still does that. He never stopped. The problem is when Jesus confronted the disciples, he says, you guys have become hard of heart. I pray right now for soft hearts. I know the situation made you tough, but that doesn't mean you got to be tough on the inside. We got to learn to understand that he was the creator, and he's still the creator. He'll provide a way when he needs to provide a way. This week I was hungry. I don't know why I'm giving another hunger example, but I was in my office and I was hungry, and it was about an hour before I normally go and do my lunch, and I was thinking, man, I'm really hungry today. And I was thinking, but man, I'm so tired of all the food around me. Everybody's ever do that? You're like, yeah, I'm tired of, like, I don't even want to eat because I'm tired of all the food that's around me. Like, I don't want to get the same old, same old. And so I'm literally sitting at my desk and I'm praying. I'm thinking, yeah, Lord, what do I want to eat today? Give me, I know this sounds silly, but I'm like, Lord, give me revelation of what my lunch is going to be today. Like illuminate a restaurant in my area. And so normally at this time of day, my kids are in school. And on that day, my eldest had the day off. And for some reason, she shows up at our office with two trays of food. And I'm like, what you doing here? She's like, I came to bring mom lunch. She's like, well, that's nice. What about me? Right? And so turns out, though, that when she went to the restaurant, which is a restaurant I don't frequent often enough, she had picked up some other Laura's food, which wasn't my wife's Laura's food. She had paid for it, even though my wife had already paid for the food. And she brought the food, and I'm a salmon guy, and it was salmon. My wife's not a fish person, so she brought me my food. And my wife didn't get her food. She had to go back. She got it later. You know, it was all rectified. But what I'm trying to say is, like, her mess up was God's answered prayer for me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like literally in that moment. And that's silly. It's yes, but God will provide when you least expect it in ways that only He can provide. He's creative like that. If we're going to move with God, we've got to learn to be creative as well. He's creative in His provision. He'll figure out a way to get you what you need. Just stop closing your eyes. Stop pretending like He can't do it. How many of you guys got a testimony that God has provided in a way that you didn't think He was going to be able to provide? So why are our hearts hard now? What happened? What happened? Like, why are we going to forget that God's still God, that He's still the creator, that He can still create? And if we're going to move with Him, we need to learn to tap into the creativity that He has already built in us. If we're going to move with God, this whole series has been about moving with God, being intentional in our movement, doing stuff on purpose, right? Today we're talking about moving. If we're going to move with Him, who is a creative God, we've got to learn to be creative, and He's built that creativity in us already. What has He built into us? He built into us His character. Genesis 1, chapter 26, He says that He made us in His image, in His likeness. He made us like Him. He made us to have the character of Him. And we've just established that He is a creative God. And so if He's a creative God and we are in His image, that means we are a creative people. We are intended to create. And if we are not creating, stay with me, if we are not creating at some level, we are not in alignment with God's basic design for our existence. Did you hear that? You might say, but Pastor, I'm not an artist. I can't draw. I can't sing. I can't do nothing. You can create something. You can create something. It's in your character. You maybe need to believe a little bit more about what God's put in you, though. For that, He gave each and every one of us, in accordance with Romans 12, verse 3, He said He's given to each one a measure of faith. See, He's already built in your character the ability to create, and now He says He's also given us a measure of faith to each one of us. So if you could just believe that God's given you the ability to create, you can start to create. We need to learn to believe that there is a capacity to create that's in each and every one of us. It's in our nature. It may not be you're the creator that you're going to sing and write songs. That might not be your creation. But you can create something in the space that you operate. You need to learn to be creative if you're going to move with God.